Hey everybody, and welcome to a little project I've been working on. Um, this is uh, this is something I've been messing around with in Botania. I've been kind of interested in coming up with my own setups for some of the automation, especially since I feel like that's the coolest part of mods, setting up your own, learning how to play with the mechanics and stuff. So there's not a lot of stuff on automating the Shulk Me Not with only Botania and vanilla mechanics, so I decided to give my own try at it. So let's start off with the basics. The Shulk Me Not is a generating flower. Um, Generates mana when a shulker aggroes onto a hostile mob, uh, and so when the shulker pellet connects, the Shulk Me Not will consume both of the mobs and completely fill its mana reserve as long as it's empty to begin with. This is an endgame flower, by the way. Uh, you do need to beat the Gaia boss. So, um, this flower also basically requires the Heisei Dream, which is just a functional flower that makes mobs aggro onto each other. And so this helps a lot with getting, the shulkers to actually attack hostile mobs. Now you can probably already see that already, but to understand how that works before we go over there, let's talk a little bit about vanilla shulker mechanics. This farm and most vanilla shulker farms rely on mechanics with scaffolding, where basically shulkers can attach to any sort of solid block face. So like obviously they can attach to a full block. Let me get something. Let me get like a yeah. So shulker can attach to all six sides of this block, for example. Um, but they can also attach to stuff like the solid side of a slab. So like that one you see immediately teleports away because it doesn't see it as valid. But here, it's the opposite. This even applies to stuff like the mana pool. The shulker can hang on the underside of that. But scaffolding's interesting because basically mobs register its hitbox differently depending on like where they see it from, basically, from what I understand. So from below, like here, for example, a shulker will actually just not see a hitbox on the scaffolding at all. They treat it as an air block. So if I can't really demonstrate here. The setup's not great for it. I'll explain more in the farm. But basically, shulkers, if say a shulker was here and wanted to teleport, it would see this block as a valid teleportation location because it's a solid face, and this scaffolding is treated as an air block, so it can open. But when the shulker actually teleports there, it now sees the scaffolding from above, which means it actually sees this top face as a solid face, kind of like a top slab. So what that actually means is that, well, shulkers want to be in positions where they can open. And as you can see, the shulker immediately teleports out because it sees the scaffolding as a solid hitbox now, which means that it can't open. Well, it thinks it can't. It can, because that's how scaffolding works, but it won't, its AI will cause it to immediately teleport away. And so if we go over to this farm here, what's going on is the shulkers are essentially being coerced into teleporting on these bottom slabs, where they will immediately see the scaffolding and think, oh, I need to teleport again. And so it kind of forces them upwards because from this floor, all these slabs in range appear to be valid. Um, but as they continue going up, they'll see the floor they're on and the floors below as invalid, and so they'll be forced to rise upwards. This farm isn't my design, by the way. I'll put something up on screen here, uh, and leave a link to the video I used in the description. Yeah, and this is actually just the vanilla shulker shell farm, by the way. As you can see, there's the shulker shells in here. And the modifications I made is everything from like this up. So how this farm works is the shulkers, as I said before, they get teleported upwards or teleport themselves upwards, at which point they teleport onto this bit of scaffolding platform here, where they touch the boat hitbox and get put in. But the boats are actually technically considered underwater because of this waterlogged fence, which means that the boat will immediately kick off all of its passengers, and that causes the shulkers to be the way the boats work. The shulkers will be sent into these sort of kill chambers where they will normally just die of entity cramming. However, what I want is to make sure that some of these shulkers, instead of being entity crammed, will end up in this chamber where where these floating Shulk Me Nots will cause them, well, this Heisei Dream will cause them to aggro on each other, which will cause the Shulk Me Nots to consume them and generate mana. And as you can see, it's the same principle. I've surrounded these with the non-teleportable blocks, by the way, because I used to run into a bunch of issues when I was designing this, where the shulkers would shoot at each other, even from this lower position, which I didn't want. And that would sometimes break these boats, which would just mess up the farm, and that's not ideal. Especially because it is really annoying to replace the boats when there are shulkers on this platform. So I added these walls, and so far it looks like it's working. And I also have greatly limited the amount of space this final platform has for shulkers. Hopefully so that so shulkers have social aggro, which means that, like, for example, in this farm actually, how it works is there's a bunch of snow golems down here, and they shoot upwards at this central shulker, which is the one that's being duplicated essentially. If you don't know how vanilla shulker farms work, a shulker that gets hit with a shulker bullet has a chance to teleport away and leave a copy behind. So that's what's going on. That's also why I didn't want to That's also why I don't want all the shulkers to be turned into mana, because this farm does use these shulkers as a restock for this central shulker when it eventually dies from taking too many shots, which is why the output is pretty limited. But it's also because the Shulk Me Nots do have a lot of wind down time, so making it a bit slower is honestly fine. I mean, these generate a lot of mana uh per activation anyways. Although there's definitely ways to improve this design. I mean, I spent a lot of time, even while recording this video a couple of times actually, like this diluted mana pool recently. I actually recently added this because I was running into an issue where the Heisei Dream would run out of mana from the mana pool, especially if there were multiple like activations or when the pool is getting low. Even after the flowers would Shulk Me Nots would activate, the Heisei Dream wouldn't get enough mana before the spark would send it to these mana pools. So then I realized I could add this little diluted mana pool as a buffer with the spark. So the Heisei Dream mana source is independent of the main mana pool, and that's actually been working out really well. This is a bit of a this is just a setup for getting the mana out of the farm. So this is a spark with a recessive augment, which means that the spark will automatically pump mana to any other sparks within the network, essentially. So this spark is constantly pumping mana to these three sparks. These pools are then connected to mana spreaders, which are just passing it along to this final pool, which just has a mana void underneath. Mostly so the farm doesn't like get completely full of mana. As you can see, there's a lot of mana backed up still. You can always add like another spreader and more sparks. So this is obviously kind of a bottleneck, but yeah. This extraction setup was actually inspired by by Shulk Me Not farm design I saw. It's for a mod pack though, and used mods that allow you to get like shulker spawners, which is which isn't exactly what I wanted, but I did like the setup. So I'll credit that in this video too. So yeah, so this is the basic setup I have. It's a vanilla one-dimensional shulker farm with this little module attached so that the Shulk Me Nots get some shulkers up here. I was thinking about trying out this sort of concept with the two-dimensional farm. Basically, in a two-dimensional farm, shulkers will teleport to nether portals where they're collected in the nether instead. Although I wasn't entirely sure if I wanted to deal with the hassle of all of the stuff involved with nether transportation, chunk loading, I guess, and whatnot. Well, chunk loading, I guess, isn't an issue, but one-dimensional farms are a lot easier, I think. Yeah, this definitely isn't optimal, but I do think it's a cool concept, and I mean, maybe you can maybe you can be inspired to make your own design or something. If you do want to just like copy my design for the most part, I would recommend I would definitely remember to keep a lot of buttons. These buttons below the mana pool, as I demonstrated down there, shulkers can teleport to these faces, so a button just stops them from doing so. These buttons, well, actually no, this platform's pretty close. I'm just taking it safe in that sense. That mana void is probably excessive. The buttons there are probably excessive though. And yeah, so that's like the design I have itself. This extraction system can definitely use some work, especially with this mana pool is very bottlenecked. Anyways, one last thing. If you're unaware, this is an item from Tania, a cocoon. Basically, it transforms after like a minute into a baby animal. But if you feed it chorus fruit, it'll transform into a shulker. Which also makes this vanilla farm much easier to load because you don't have to worry about transporting a shulker from the end into the overworld and then from the overworld spawn to where your farm is. You can just spawn a shulker here, and one shulker is enough to get the farm started. I would, however, recommend that you don't build this part of the farm until you confirm that some shulkers are in this kill chamber. Mostly because you don't want like your one shulker to rise up and teleport into this chamber by itself, for example, because that would just mean the farm is not gonna run. Anyways, once this cocoon hatches, I guess, transforms, I'll show you how you can load a shulker into the farm using a minecart, which is also in the farm tutorial, by the way, if you're wondering. I don't know if it's just me, but that animation is kind of horrifying. And hey, the shulker hatched, and it's social aggroed onto the snowman all the way over here. Let me just knock off a few blocks, try to get it to teleport where I want it to. Please. No. Not. Let me just spawn it where I need it to go. Yeah, the cocoon spawns the shulkers like a block above, I guess. That has been kind of consistent in the times I've tried it. So I should have placed a cocoon here probably because it would attach to this block. Anyways, let's actually talk about loading the shulker. So you want this minecart on a powered rail over here. Now, if you flick this lever, it should, yep, it should get sent into the minecart, and there's an activator rail up here. All of these all of these are slabs because I don't want the shulker to essentially like teleport on the underside. I have there's an activator rail here powered, um, and the lever blocks this teleportation spot. And what should happen is when I power this rail and it hits the activation, yep, it gets kicked off the minecart and it immediately teleports into the farm because that's the only valid location for it to go. And now you have the farm going. And once you see there are a good number of shulkers in here, you can start building this platform, this series of platforms. I would highly recommend you start with like these stone walls, especially because shulkers can't teleport onto these at all, which gives you a lot more like room to you know place the setup first, then place the slabs. Uh, oh yeah, if you're wondering, the scaffolding's here for the same reason. I'm trying to force them if they teleport in here to teleport back up and not stick around here for too long. Yeah, so that's this Shulk Me Not farm design I've made. I hope this was interesting to watch. It was a fun little project for me. However, this is also kind of impractical for like a real Botania playthrough, in my opinion. Um, like, I mean, the Shulker farm, the vanilla Shulker farm part is cheap enough, but like, the Shulk Me Nots are pretty expensive in late game. If I remember correctly, this Spark, like these are pretty expensive too, right? It's like mid game ish, I guess. It's not the worst, but it's still not like ideal, I guess. So hopefully I make another one of these, and maybe it'll be something a lot more practical. Like an early game mana generating flower that'll be much more, practical for someone to use in a real playthrough. When by the time at which they probably don't, well, probably do have like mana issues, but don't have a lot of the tools yet. Maybe, I mean, Endo Flame setups are pretty easy, right? But maybe I'll think of something interesting, or maybe I'll try to fully automate hydro and how do you even say this? These 'cause they do decay, so it might be an interesting challenge to make a fully automated setup for crafting them and placing them. I don't know. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you were interested by this setup and think this was an interesting bit of automation. Yeah, well, I'm just repeating myself, aren't I? I hope this was an interesting watch. I enjoyed making this, and do hopefully the next one will be more interesting. Thank you.